Welcome to another episode of the Art Marketing Podcast. I'm Brandon, again, guest hosting for Pat on Copilot Stories. And I've got a really exciting guest, good friend of mine and someone that is a pioneer in the art marketing industry. I've got Nick Friend, CEO of Art Storefronts. Welcome, Nick. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Brandon.
I think it's been a while since you've been on the Art Marketing Podcast. I'm excited to get in this conversation and wanted to chat with you today because you wrote an article on Art Marketing Copilot called The Next Big Thing in Art Sales, How the Copilot Model Will Change the Game for Artists. And we'll get to that here in a little bit. But for the listeners out there and maybe some folks that don't know your background, you've been in the art business for decades almost. And
Yep.
You've seen a lot of major shifts happen. You've seen the ups and downs. You've seen how, we've had pandemics that's changed the landscape. We've had all kinds of things that have happened. So I wanted to see if you could just give a brief history lesson and walk us through some of the big shifts that you've seen in the art selling industry.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the key thing is there hasn't been that many. Right. And so every time there's been one, it's created a huge unlock for artists and photographers. Right. And so I think these things are important to know. And especially because as a result of technology, and the internet and just computers and all of that, there's been a few that have happened in the last 30 years, right, that have been very profound. And prior to that, there really weren't any that were happening for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And the way that artists had to run their businesses in those days, which was largely, they relied on third parties like galleries or art dealers, depending on how far you go back, right? Where they had limited distribution. So they would only be selling to the local gallery or galleries if they were lucky. They didn't have global distribution or national distribution. So they were very limited in what they could do. And then in addition to that, the galleries and the art dealers, had way too much power in these relationships. And, like anything, what is that saying? Ultimate power corrupts or absolute power corrupts absolutely.
I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's in anything, if you have that much power, you can, take the highest percentage of revenue. And, that's the way that these relationships sort of evolved and went for a long period of time, which was a big contributing factor to the starving artist problem, right? And so every one of these unlocks, right, coming up to what I believe is the next evolution of selling art, which we'll get into, all of these unlocks were very profound moments for the individual artist entrepreneur in stopping or minimizing the starving artist problem the way that it was in the past that I just described. And so that's what's super important about it. So the first one that happened, and this is right when I was actually getting into the art market, was in the late 90s. And it was, you could call it print on demand. Okay. But what actually happened was inkjet printers were released, right? In the 90s. And, people were buying them and all that stuff. And then companies like Epson and Canon and HP released wide format printers. In fact, I think Epson was the first one who released a very user-friendly version of it. Okay. And what they released was a 17-inch, a 24-inch, and a 44-inch wide printer. Okay. That any individual could buy and make their own prints. They could print one at a time. Now, this was so profound because the way that the art market worked prior to this with serigraphs, which is called serigraphy, right? Or lithography, lithographs, which are kind of like poster art. Believe it or not, a lot of lithographs that were sold, there were lithographs that were done with limited edition. So these were not posters. These could be actually pretty expensive prints. Okay. But big publishing companies would have to decide which artists they were going to represent and what specific image or 2 or 5 that they were going to publish for the artist. And then they would have to invest in a print run and buy the inventory, right? And they would be making a guess. They didn't know whether it was going to sell or not. And this actually became a huge problem for the publishing companies. And they'd end up with a bunch of inventory that didn't sell because you're literally picking racehorses trying to guess what art is going to sell, right?
It's kind of like the book game now, right? Where you have these big publishing houses, they're making bets on authors, and
exactly,
if they don't sell, they're stuck with all this inventory.
That's right. And so you had to make this huge investment. And so the artist needed somebody to make an investment in them to get the inventory and to get it out there and stuff like that. But the artist was really limited because they might have had this great body of work, and they're like, I'm only getting exposure for one of these, like whether that was one original or 5 originals in a gallery or prints in a gallery, that wasn't representative of their body of work. And without websites at that time, and nobody had websites in the late 90s, right? Especially individual entrepreneurs. There was really no way for anyone to see the rest of their catalog or to get it out there. And so it was very limiting. And so what print on demand did is it allowed individual artists and photographers to buy their own printer and make their own prints, along with, there was an explosion in small mom and pop, what I call print studios or printing companies, right? That did fine art printing or photography printing. And they would service a bunch of artists and photographers and allow them to buy one at a time. Okay. This was Giclée, right? That name was invented in order to make an inkjet print have a higher perceived value, but it was literally invented by like a handful of people that I know. Anyway, so that was a really big deal. So like you could imagine an artist that was just starting up and wanted to go sell at a local art fair in their city or town could actually make their own prints or buy them from a local print shop one at a time of like, 30, 40 or 50 different images on different media types and bring them to the show and then sell them. They didn't have to go do a big print run, which most of them would never do, and they could actually get that stuff done. So this was a really big deal. That was a really big deal. So that was the first one. The second one came, a few years later, which was e-commerce. All right. So e-commerce, and I would say that the ability to easily launch an e-commerce website and show your gallery and sell your art and have your own art gallery as an artist that's open 24/7, globally to anyone in the world. So now you've unlocked the ability for the artist, all right, to sell direct to the consumer. Big, big deal. Okay. So instead of being totally reliant on third parties to sell their art, an artist could now show their entire catalog to everybody. All right. So you solved that problem, and anyone could buy from them and they could have a direct relationship with their customer. This is a huge deal because artists now could acquire their own leads, right? Like getting emails from people and phone numbers or whatever it was at that time, and send emails out to people and allow people to follow them and subscribe to them. This was pre-social media, by the way. I'll get into that in a second. But by doing that, it was the first time that artists could really own their own customer list, and own their own leads, people who are following them but might not have bought them yet, that you need to nurture to get a sale. Sometimes it could take months. Sometimes it can take a year or two. But this is what every single business has to do. You have to acquire leads and you have to acquire customers. And if you ever want to sell your business one day, or build a valuable business, right? You have to own your customers, period. Right? So many artists at that time were so stuck with art dealers and publishers, and then they'd get dropped, or their art kind of went out of style. And that happens all the time. For a couple of years, you're hot in a gallery and then your stuff doesn't sell anymore. Trust me, they'll be the first person to drop you like a rock. And they just bring the next artist in because they've got a retail space and they need to make the most of it,
Yeah, it's crazy. We forget how recent people were scared to put credit card information online to make a small $100 purchase, let alone buying originals, buying a several $1,000 piece.
That's right.
So
that's right. So what happened from there, so e-commerce opened up, but it over the last 20 years of that, let's say, it's just gotten easier and easier and easier to launch an e-commerce store and to have all of the features and functionality that you need in order to provide the proper experience for an art buyer, right? Visualization features, where they can try the art on their wall in their home with augmented reality, for example, where they can change the paint color on a wall, in a wall simulation. They can change the room settings. They can look at it framed, unframed. They can look at it in 3D, whether it's on metal or it might be on a merch item like a mug or a tote bag or a puzzle, right?
This is where Art Storefront's main value prop kind of comes in, right?
Yeah, so that's the main thing that we did with Art Storefronts, for the website, right? Is to give them an e-commerce website with everything that they need, because that at the time didn't exist. Okay, so what and I guess I'll talk about that for like a minute or two. It's worth it. So as e-commerce was evolving, what I saw in my background, and it was through my background at Breathing Color, which is a company I founded in 2003, which is a manufacturer. It's one of the largest manufacturers in the world of inkjet canvas, fine art paper, photography paper, all for highest quality art and photography reproduction, right? And so we got to see who was buying the most material and selling the most art, so to speak. And there was a shift that we saw after the great financial crisis, like 08, 09, 2010, where the companies that had a very robust online presence, call it like the art.coms level, right? Because they had to invest millions of dollars into their own e-commerce websites that they developed from scratch. And they had framing tools, they had wall visualization tools and the things that I'm talking about. In a more crude fashion in those years, right? But they were selling tons and tons of art. You can go look it up. It was crazy. And then meanwhile, as the online revolution was happening, the artist was sitting there with generic websites with nothing. Like websites, from generic platforms that we're all familiar with, right? And call it GoDaddy, Squarespace, whatever, take your pick, Wix. And they're using technology that people who are selling toilet paper and swim fins and ladies' handbags,
snowboards.
Yeah, exactly. Surfboard, whatever it is, right? Anybody, you launch, but those types of products are very low friction. There's not much you need to know or see in order to buy it. But art is one of those high friction items, where you got multiple people making a buying decision, usually like husband and wife or something like that, or roommates. You've got, what size is going to work on my wall? Is it going to fit with my interior design or my couches or my bed or, all of these different things. You've got interior designers looking to outfit hotels that need to make sure that they're buying art that's going to work for that setting. And so there was a huge dichotomy between what the really successful art sellers had, and then the individual artist and photographer. And so that was a huge problem to solve. And that's what Art Storefronts first set out to do was, hey, let's give the little guy everything these guys have.
Start arming the rebels.
Yeah, arm the rebels, exactly. They're selling hundreds of millions of dollars of art a year, literally hundreds of millions a year, but like each company. So they were selling billions, okay? But they literally selling hundreds of millions of dollars using this type of technology. And so very simple premise, arm the rebels, give the artists exactly what they need. And so you can see that was a big step right there. So now the artists have multi-million-dollar technology at their disposal that, nobody else has an advantage over them. The big online art companies have no advantage over them, zero. In fact, now they're even behind the individual artists, with Art Storefronts, because there's way better technology and a way better buying experience for the consumer. Okay. And so these are huge leaps that have gone on, right? And then, so the next one the next leap that happened, I would say this one's a little bit smaller than the previous two, but very important, is just automated print fulfillment. Okay. Because at the time you could have your own e-commerce store, All right. You could have all the bells and whistles or whatever, at that time, the bells and whistles really weren't there. But the automated print fulfillment allowed the artists to, it allows an artist to connect their website via API to some of the best printing companies in the world, okay? And have those printing companies who are at scale, they are huge companies. They have the best printers, the best ink, the best quality. You cannot replace what they do, okay? And they have the cheapest shipping rates because they're so big. They have the cheapest rates on canvas, metal, acrylic, everything you'd ever want to print on, They have the cheapest packaging, boxes, all of that. And they can ship internationally cheap as well. And so for the artists, this was key because it unlocked their ability to sell their art on any type of product that they might want to do at any price that they wanted to, and have a professional printing company automatically print those orders and ship them and do so in a very professional fashion at a very low cost, that allowed the artist to completely take that headache off their plate and make a really good profit margin on it, and control their entire offering. And so that was a very big unlock because it was such a big headache for artists. And so you have artists even to this day that don't have automated print fulfillment that are sitting there offering like their images only on canvas or only on paper, or maybe only on those. And they're missing metal and other types of media types that are best selling, like some of the hottest sellers for the last like 5 years, right? Metal being one of those. And they can't offer it because they can't do metal, because you cannot do that on your own with just an inkjet printer. You need a dye sublimation printer and dye sublimation equipment in order to be able to make a metal print, right? And so there's things like that have to that you have to be able to take advantage of in order to sell those items. And then of course, all of the framing. Artists are not running their own frame shop, and frames, 15 or 20% of orders are probably going to come with frames. From what we see in our own data, that's an easy upsell to make more money, right? And if you have that headache, you're not even going to do it. I usually don't see artists offering that if they don't have automated fulfillment. And so they're just losing all of that extra revenue on all of their orders. Or if they do offer any framing, they're offering like, some ready-made frames that are cheap and very simple. They don't have like a broad array of frames that consumers with, any type of home, whether it's modern or it's, Spanish Mediterranean, or it's like a hotel that has like some sort of different vibe that everyone will want, right? And so you want to have an offering that appeals to the broadest part of the market. And that's what automated print fulfillment unlocked.
Got it. And it seemed like a very interesting thread just in this industry, right? It's you have a lot of moats that are being kind of torn down over time, right? In the beginning, seems like you kind of have these publisher kingmakers that would curate and sort of pick winners over time. That went away. Then you had heavy inventory cost. That kind of went away with the individual inkjet printers. And then the distribution side of things, right? Where you had like these big online marketplaces, people like Art Storefronts and companies that were focused on the individual, so-called arming the rebel, gave them all the tools for distribution. And so now we're here, and I want to kind of get into, I love that history lesson. Some things I didn't know about. I didn't know where G-Clay came from. I always wondered that. But I want to get into some of this Copilot things I'm hearing about, because you've teased, in this article about another major shift, another
Yes.
paradigm, another wave coming around this art business Copilot model. Could you elaborate on this and tell the audience, sort of how this model differentiates from the traditional ways that artists have, sort of managed their businesses? It sounds like it's more on the marketing and distribution side. And a lot of the innovations we talked about so far have been on the operations and sort of enabling artists, but it sounds like this Copilot model is a little bit different. Yeah,
it's mainly on the marketing side, but it's also the tech side as well, and before I go into that, I want to underscore the point that you made, because it relates to, Copilot and this next evolution, which is every one of these points that I just discussed was disrupting somebody in a power position you know, and
Exactly.
shifting the power to the artist. All right. So these are all amazing things, right? Every one of those occurrences shifted power to the artist and unlocked something that the artist couldn't do, you know? And that's a major point, because Copilot is doing the exact same thing, right? This whole philosophy, this next evolution, it's doing the exact same thing, right? And so what is the problem there? Is that, okay, so let's review. Artists, if an artist is taking advantage of everything that's happened, they have, you know, an e-commerce website with all of the features and functionality that are designed to sell art and to provide the best experience possible to an art consumer, right? They have automated print fulfillment using print on demand, so they can offer everything in their catalog. You know, they can offer any type of product they want, or media type: canvas, metal, acrylic, you know, merchandise items like mugs or tote bags or whatever. They have global distribution. Anybody can buy from them at any time, 24/7, from their gallery online. Your gallery is your website, is this e-commerce website, right? That's the artist's gallery. It just happens to be online, but that is their fine art gallery, right? And you know, they can ship anywhere in the world at a very cheap price, so they can service anyone, all right? But what's left? What's left here? So artists have to be tech experts. They have to learn how to manage their own website. They're constantly updating their website, you know, uploading new images, setting their pricing, you know, doing all these different things. And so they have this tech burden. They have to learn these platforms, and they have to constantly waste time or spend time updating their website. And there's no leverage in that, you know, like there's just, you're not like materially improving your business when you're just updating your site. I mean, of course, if you're just updating some images and people are going to buy those images, that's a worthwhile update, right? But generally speaking, the vast majority of the tech that artists are doing is largely a waste of their time. You know, that's not something that's going to double or triple their sales. Okay. In addition to that, another thing you have left over is marketing, right? So you think about a good way of thinking about this is like multi-million-dollar artist companies, big ones. I'm talking Peter Lick, you know, Weiland, Gray Malin, go down the list. These are big companies. Thomas Kincaid is another one from many years back, selling many millions of dollars a year of art, you know, have full teams, full marketing teams, 3, 5, 7, 10 full-time marketing employees that are only working on marketing, you know, as well as a whole tech team that's managing the website. The artist isn't doing any of it, you know?
They're just creating, yeah.
They're just creating. Their job is just to create and make a better product, okay? And when they make a better product, they increase the marketability of the entire business, right? Because if you only paint, you know, beaches, and then you start painting cities, you're going to attract a different audience. And now you've just potentially doubled your potential audience size, which has increased the upper ceiling of the revenue potential of your business. And so they're able to do that, you know, in this amazing scenario. And not only that, the artist gets to enjoy their life much better than having to sit here tinkering with the tech burden and then trying to become a marketing expert, which, give me a break. How do you do that? You know? And so that's the thing, is that the artist still has that tech burden, and they've still got this major marketing burden. They have to get exposure. You have to get your art out there. And that's why artists traditionally have been like, you know, trying to rely on galleries or hoping that galleries would sell their art, because galleries at least like had people walking into, they didn't give you any like global distribution or even national or even statewide distribution, but they had a little tiny bit of distribution. They might sell an original for you, you know, and that's better than you trying to do it on your own and not being able to. So, so this is where the next evolution of an art business is, okay? And this is what Copilot, you know, what we've created at Art Storefronts is all about. So to go into that for a second, you know, number one, you never manage your website again, right? Like, you're not a website expert. We know that artists are not website experts. Why? We have over 10,000 of them managing their websites. And at a certain point, we just said, this is pointless. All of your websites are out of date. We're releasing all of these features. You haven't activated them. We've released them because all we do is study e-commerce trends, and we know what is creating, the highest average order value, the highest conversion rates. Conversion rates are the number of people who buy divided by the number of people who visit your website. Like, all of these things in the art business are critical. And all we saw was that artists are just totally out of date on all of this stuff, even ones that are selling really well. And so you're not going to be a tech expert. And then if you even fast forward further, Brandon, with artificial intelligence and what's coming, every artist you're not going to be managing your website. It's gone. It's going to be over anyway, right? It's just a matter of time. Okay. And so we just figured that we need to do this. We need to hire a big enough team to be able to do it, and do it at a ridiculously low price. And don't even worry about making money on it. It just needs to happen for a bigger reason, which I'll get into in a second. But let me now go over the marketing. Same thing, right? An artist is not going to become a marketing expert. Okay. It's that. In addition, we have people who are actually pretty good at marketing that sell more than anyone than we know. Top selling artists, right? Brandon, their marketing expertise is like 20% or 15% of what it should be, right? They're leaving all of that money on the table, all of that success on the table. And so they're just barely doing decent marketing. And I'm talking like, we have 10,000 customers, and we've spoken to over 200,000 artists at art storefronts over the last 10 years. Like, these are the unicorns, and they're only at that level, right? And why is it? Because you've got to create art. That's what you want to do. You've got to run all these other, you're managing your website, you got admin, you got all this different stuff. And then now you got to learn how to blog. You got to learn how to send and become an email marketing expert, a social media expert. Needless to say, the trends on all of these are changing all the time. Like, every 3 to 6 months, posts that are like working really well on social media are no longer working. Emails that were working well before are no longer working. Subject lines, on emails that used to work before are now getting you in the spam folder. It's like, artists are not up to date on all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's another headache that gets in the way of this bigger thing, which is, and this is where all the leverage is for the artist, is iterating on their product, meaning their art. That is where all the leverage is, okay? And that's the most important point of this, is that if you want to have a much bigger art business, it's way more about your content, your subject matter, okay? And the marketability of your subject matter than anything, okay? And if you combine a great product with great marketing, then you have magic, okay? That's where you have magic. If you have an unmarketable product that's never been sold, and you have the best marketing strategy in the world by the best marketer that's ever been alive, you still will have $0 in sales, because the best marketing can't sell a bad product. And the best marketing can't turn a decent product into like a $5 million art business, right?
Right.
And so that's the key in this next evolution, right? The artists should be offloading the tech to an expert and the marketing to experts, okay? As much as possible. It doesn't mean you don't participate in any of it, but you can now do that. That's what we've made possible at Art Storefronts, is doing marketing in an unbelievable volume of marketing and promotion of your art at an insanely low price, so that artists have a marketing department, Brandon, that's on par with a multi-million-dollar company. Okay.
Yeah, let's talk about some of the challenges they would have prior to this, right? So, you kind of mentioned earlier on, you'd have to do lead gen, you'd have to generate emails, set up your MailChimps and all these campaigns. You have to learn email marketing, what's a good subject line. You'd have to be an expert across multi-dimensional channels in marketing. And, as I know, being a marketer myself, and you kind of alluded to this, you're always chasing your tail, right? Like,
absolutely.
You're chasing the newest thing, where the attention is, and it gets really exhausting continuously fine tuning your expertise. You really can never sit on your laurels there. So the options were, be a lifelong student of marketing and be a practitioner, get better and better and fine tune your skills there. Or, and you kind of talked about this a little bit, you outsource that to a large agency, where you're having to pay several $1,000s a month, or, hiring people for several thousands of dollars a year to kind of take on the marketing for you. So and if you're new to selling your art or you're just starting your business, these are expenses that sort of make it prohibitive to hire somebody, right?
That's right, because marketing is expensive. And why? It's because it's an insane amount of work. Like, there's a lot of hours of work. It's not like, agencies or anything like that are trying to rip people off. I mean, Brandon, you've been a marketer for 20 years. I have too, right? And it's a lot of work. Like, anyone who has put emails together and sent email campaigns, and
I was just thinking, emails, crafting a 50-word email can take hours.
Yeah.
Just giving all the expertise and psychology and everything else. So,
and then you send it out, and you see your open rates are really low and your click rates, and you're like, why? Like, what am I? And then you find yourself reading a blog article about how do I improve my open rates and click rates.
Yep.
And
go down the rabbit hole.
And then you're reading books on it, and then it's years and years and years of becoming an absolute expert in this stuff, right? And so it's just hours and hours of work. Your art has to be promoted. There's a great line by Patrick, our head of marketing, that he says, like, you can have the best website in the world, like a Ferrari, but that's just a Ferrari sitting in your driveway with no gas in it. It's going nowhere. The gas is the marketing, so fish are not going to jump into your boat with your random website on the internet. Okay. And you're not going to SEO your website. Don't buy any SEO packages. SEO stopped working like 10 years ago. Okay. And it's all getting uprooted anyway by artificial intelligence. These chat tools where searches are going to be starting to route through that. So that'll be a whole nother disruption of SEO. But anyways, I'm digressing. The important point on this is that you have to promote your art. Okay. No one's going to do it for you. And by promoting, it means getting it out there and getting eyeballs on it. How many eyeballs a day, a month, a week are seeing your art, are seeing every individual piece of art that you have, right? These are very, very important points. Like, think about it right now. Like, every artist that's listening to this, in the last 30 days, how many pieces do you have on your website or in your catalog, right? How many people saw each one of those? I hate to break it to you that when people go to your website, they're not going through and looking at every piece of art that you have at all. If you don't believe me, go check your analytics. Go look at your product page.
30 seconds.
30 seconds on your homepage.
Yeah.
They forget everything they saw except the one that they might have liked, and they click on that one. That's all they remember, and they're gone, right? If they don't buy anything. And if you look at your product page views in your analytics, you'll see that like almost nobody is going to those individual pages, right? It's very, very few. And so what you think might be happening is not actually happening. You need to bring your art to them. That's where social media and email really come into play, especially social media. You need to get your art on Main Street of the internet. That's what these social media platforms are. Facebook, Instagram, for example, this is like, CNN and Fox News 10 years ago, right? Like, this is the Main Street where those ads were driving a lot of stuff. This is the Main Street of the internet. And so when you're posting on social media, you're giving your art a chance to get eyeballs on it, and you need eyeballs on your art, right? So that's the benefit of growing a following and growing an email list, is you're getting people's attention that you can show your art to. So if you think about the last 30 days or even the last 12 months, a lot of artists listening to this right now probably are like, oh, wow, I've had my website up there and I've seen some people visiting, but nobody's really looking at my images. And they look at their analytics and it's confirmed. Like, nobody's really looking at all of these different things. And so you're not going anywhere. Your business is going nowhere. You have to promote your art externally and get it out there just like the multi-million-dollar art companies do, right? They're doing social media posts every day, you know, or close to it or more. Some of them are doing 3 to 5 posts a day. And they're sending emails out a couple times a week and so forth, right? It's just active promotion of art. It's no more complicated than that. It has to be done. And anyone that is selling a lot of art is doing it. Anyone who is not selling a lot of art is not doing it.
Got it. I mean, it sounds like it's really just people that are not doing it. It's a tree falling in the woods, no one seeing it, never getting the light of day.
Exactly. And many artists, unfortunately, like they're new to entrepreneurship, they're new to business. They just don't even know that. They think that they just launch a website and like fish are going to jump into their boat and just start buying. And like, that doesn't work. And it's not just about art. This is any business. You could launch any business in any industry with a website. The same thing is going to happen. You know, it doesn't matter. You have to promote the business. If you just launched a restaurant, you know, in town, you have to promote the restaurant, okay, for people to come. Otherwise, you're going to have an empty restaurant.
Absolutely. So let's talk about a little, like kind of get into the details. We've got a sort of a high level understanding of Copilot, the Copilot model. You know, essentially you're outsourcing a lot of these tasks, you know, marketing plus some tech sort of management.
Yes.
To a tech-enabled service, right? That you know, like art storefronts would take care of for you. What is it doing on a day-to-day basis for you, for me, the artist or photographer?
Okay, so on the tech side, if you need to change anything on your website, you just let our team know and we do it for you, right? Like, hey, I need to upload these images and put them in my store and price them like this. You do that in a minute. You're back to creating art, you know, and doing that, and it all just gets done for you. And you get an email back, hey, it's done. Here it is. Check it out if you want to, but it's done, right? So you have that headache lifted. So the tech side is really simple, right? The marketing is very sophisticated. All right. So for those who don't know, for many, many years, Art Storefronts has provided an art marketing calendar. Okay. It's to all of our customers. It's a 365-day a year art marketing calendar that tells you exactly what to do on every day, what social media posts you should do, how you should do them, what your text should be, what emails you should send and when, what your subject line should be, what the copy should be, you know, all of the strategy within it when you're running Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Valentine's Day, these other big art selling holidays that you need to take advantage of all year long. We basically wanted our artists to have just a huge advantage over everybody else and be able to do the marketing DIY on their own. All right. But according to a strategy that was proven and worked. How do we know that it worked and was proven? All of our customers are doing it, or the vast majority, and have been for 8 years. And we have all the data and all of the research we track all of it to understand what emails, what social media posts, what strategies are working. And then we update all of the materials to make sure that the artists that are following it have the latest and greatest proven tactics and strategies that are actually working, right? So when they're going to spend their own time and hours doing marketing, they could do it in the right place. All right. Now, Copilot does all of that for them at an insanely low price. So we've built a huge team, Brandon, a huge team of people so that we could look at all of the tasks that the art marketing calendar does and even do more, but it's almost like 100 hours a month. All right. If you do everything that we want you to do to have like a great art business, you know, that can sell a lot. Copilot, the whole point of Copilot is to do all of it for you. And so that you are consistently marketing, you have a proven strategy that you're plugging into. You basically have an entire marketing team, you know, that's working for you at an insanely low price. Okay. Now, we still encourage our artists that they should still make social media posts on their own if they want to. Like if they're very particular about their social media or they're constantly doing videos that are really personal, love that. They should do that. But the bottom line is your art has to be promoted. Okay. All of it. If you want it, if it's on your website and you want to promote it, it needs to get promoted. Okay. And so what a lot of artists tend to do is they're only promoting stuff that they just recently painted. the stuff that they might have painted years ago, which, if you want to make passive income from your art, you need to keep selling what you made 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years ago. And the only way you're ever going to do that is if you promote it again every once in a while. You don't have to promote it every month, but you probably should promote it a couple times a year. You need to promote everything. So if you look at like how big of a catalog you might have, whether it's
your new fans might not have seen your older work.
They definitely didn't see it.
Yeah.
They nobody's seen it, and especially with social media, they tell you, Facebook and Instagram literally tell you that when you make a social media post, they only show it to like 2% of your audience. So if you think that everybody who's following you is seeing every post you're making, you have the wrong perception of how social media works. And you don't even know what the platform is telling you. They're literally telling you, we're not going to show it to 98% of your audience. Okay. Think about that. Why do they do that? Because they want people to buy ads, right? That's the whole point of it. But if you understand that, you realize that, every image that you post, Facebook and Instagram are going to show it to like a different subset of people in your audience. And they'll usually always show it to your top fans that are constantly like commenting on your posts and stuff like that. But then they'll sprinkle it out based on who they believe is going to like that image. And how they know that is because they collect, I forget what the number is that they publish. It's like 500,000 or 600,000 data points that they have on every single user. Every time a user stops the scroll in their feed, right? They see something and they stop, or they click on something, or they comment on something, or they like something. Facebook knows everything all of us has done on all of those platforms and that we're doing every day. So if they think that one of your followers might like a waterfall image because there's something related to waterfalls that they've been interested in the past, they're probably going to show that guy that image. But if it's something else completely different, they're not going to show it to that guy. And so you want to get—
their algos kind of know, their algos know what's in the images. They know what's in the videos. Exactly. I read an article recently where, because I'm here in Austin and I see a lot of Austin ads. But I found out that because I've posted stuff from Austin, it knows I'm in Austin based on the images. And so it matches to those ads. It's just wild stuff. So it sounds like, the algorithms have gotten really good at just finding, a match for your product. So the more you post, the more serendipity you're kind of building up with your business to go out and find collectors, find new customers. Don't worry about just posting once and over posting, because 20 people are going to see that out of your 1,000 followers. The more
There's
shots
a
on
reason
goal.
why Gary Vaynerchuk, like probably the most knowledgeable and skilled person in social media, right? If you don't know who he is, look him up. He says that you need to do 20 to 40 posts a day. And people
he's doing that across every platform too.
Yeah, on every platform. And people's jaws drop. They're like, what? What are you talking about? And it's because people have misconceptions about, over posting or like the way that the algorithms really work. And he doesn't, and like I said, if you do a little bit of research, you start understanding. So if you do 5 posts a day of different art pieces, you're going to have all you're doing is getting more eyeballs on those 5 pieces. And it's going to be different people. And the same thing goes with email. I mean, email is way more obvious because email, you see that you only have a 20% open rate. So 80% of the people that are on your email list didn't even see it. Didn't even see it, So whatever image you had in there, only those people opened it. And it's not the same people every time, just like social. It's only the people that subject line that you wrote resonated with, right? And there's going to be different people every time. And that's why you want to mix that stuff up. A good marketing strategy will mix all of this stuff up, so that you're appealing to the widest portion of the audience that you've acquired and that you're building.
Got it. So what is how does the role of the artist or photographer change, in this new sort of paradigm? Well, you mentioned they could still do a little bit of marketing, but how does it affect the quantity and quality of their art? What should they be focused on in this next sort of wave?
Yeah. So now we can summarize the big unlock of the things that I just talked about, right? The big unlock is that you're now in the same position as the Gray Malin, Peter Lick, Weiland, these big multi-million-dollar artists who have a high volume of consistency of marketing happening for them because they have full-blown marketing departments. They're sending emails every week. They're doing posts every day, right? And the artist has this being done while they get to create, right? So that's the biggest difference. The artist gets to spend the maximum amount of time creating, which is what they usually want to do, right? Which is great. But it's what I say, you know, I'll add the business part to it. The big unlock and why this is such a profound evolution for the artist is that that's where their leverage is, Brandon. That's where they've always needed to be focusing. Everyone who is struggling with sales has a product problem and a marketing problem. You've either got a good product that can sell a lot more and you need to have outbound marketing done, right? You need to solve that marketing problem so that like eyeballs are actually getting on your art, right? But if you actually have eyeballs getting on your art and your art is not selling at the level that you want, or not at all, then you have a product problem, which is your art, right? You need to create and focus on creating more marketable art. And it's actually not that hard to do. You just need to know how to think about it the right way, right? Quick examples, I won't go deep on it, but because you know, we train our customers on all this stuff. We've got a course on it. But the two things I could just say is like, there's an artist that you know, was really struggling, selling almost nothing. Okay. Doing marketing, promoting it. Just like, what? It's not working. It's not working, you know? And I asked, it's like, was it working before? And they're like, no, it wasn't. It's like, okay, so you're basically just like putting gas behind a product that's not resonating, you know? And just go try painting something way more marketable, just as a test. Just humor me and do it. There was resistance, but they did it, right? They painted a celebrity and Brandon, their sales exploded in like days. They released it. It was like the day they released it, all of a sudden they sold like $10,000 of prints, right? And they came back and I talked to them and they're like, oh my goodness, I had no idea that I was pushing a cart up a hill, you know, rather than like going downhill. And I didn't realize I've been sitting here trying to force this, you know, and this just opened my eyes up. There was another photographer who was, you know, just taking photos of a city, like a local city that he lives in. And, you know, he was actually selling okay, but he's like, gosh, I want to retire from my job and I need to sell like $100,000 or more a year in order to do that. And so, you know, we told him the same thing. Like, you got to think about marketability. You got to think about product, right? That's where you're at. He goes and he starts taking pictures of Disneyland. Okay. No joke. Sales explode now at the $100,000 level and was able to retire from his job and do his photography full time. Right. And so, wow, you know, people ask about like, you know, the first thought on many people's minds is, well, how did they get a license? They didn't even get licensing deals. Okay. I'm not telling you to do that or, but I'm just take the broader point of it and understand that there are things like, for example, where you went to college, what teams you like, what athletes you like, what city you live in, what are the best spots that are popular where people get engaged or, you know, that are spots that people want to go when they visit that local city.
Every piece is a niche, basically, right?
Every piece is a niche. What are your hobbies? Are you into cigars? There you go. Huge niche. Are you into cars? You know, like you could go on and on and on by just unpacking your own hobbies and interests and your background and where you're from or where you got married. Like, these are all things that resonate with other people. And I think, you know, they may resonate with your audience, because if your audience, even if your audience is really small and it's really only friends and family members and like work colleagues, you probably live in the same area or are interested and share a lot of the same hobbies or thoughts. Like, there's crossovers there. And that's the first place to start iterating. And then you get a sense from the market and your audience of who's kind of attracted to following you and what you might want to create in the future that's more marketable, right? And so that's what the unlock is for the artist. This is where the leverage is. If the artist can spend the maximum amount of time creating and iterating on their product, that's how they're going to get their business to 100,000, to a $500,000 and to $1 million a year. It's not going to be, Brandon, this is a 100% fact. It is not going to be trying to learn how to be a marketing expert when it is impossible to be one, okay? Given all of the responsibilities that you have, and that you're not going to be as into it as any other marketer that's out there like us, right? Who have spent our lives doing it. And we're reading about it every day, and we're researching it every day.
We have Stockholm syndrome with marketing.
Yeah, and you're not going to be a tech expert, right? And like, what's the point? And then even more so, what is the point? What's the point? If you can't do better than somebody else and you can get it all done at an insanely low price, like that is the unlock. That is the unlock right there. And so if you notice what I'm saying here is that all of these points of evolution that we've gone over, right, and these unlocks that have happened have allowed the individual entrepreneur artist who might be starting out with just today, like they're going to start their art business today, can literally have, their own e-commerce website with print on demand and automated fulfillment that is state of the art. Every bit of it is state of the art. Nobody has better than you, right? And then now you've got somebody helping you with manage your website ongoing permanently. So you don't have to worry about being a tech expert. You don't have to worry that you have the right features and functionality to maximize art sales on your website and average order values, right? You don't have to worry about that anymore. And then you don't have to worry about becoming a marketing expert. And you've got the same power behind you that a multi-million-dollar artist has, right? So again, the power is just swinging to the individual artist who's able to have these things at a lower level. Whereas these multi-million-dollar artists, I mean, the things that they had to go through to get to the point that they're at, they're unicorns. They're unicorns, right? Like it was not easy for them to get to the point that they're at. And Weiland wrote a great book on it. I love his book. It's called Don't Be a Starving Artist. It's slightly outdated, but only slightly. It is worth a read for anyone that this is resonating with, because I think he goes into the e-commerce and selling direct and the importance of owning your own customers and all of those things, and like the literal hell he went through to get there, not having a lot of the things that you have today as an individual artist. So it's really an exciting time for the artist. It's the most exciting time. And, I think there's going to be probably future evolutions. I know we're constantly thinking about that because, if an artists are very small businesses, they don't have a lot of money. Okay. They may have none, they may only be able to,
reinvest.
What they've sold and all of that. And so that's like a fact. And so, how are you going to empower an artist to compete in this type of a world? And that's what Copilot, that's what we're trying to do, right? It has to be something that, like, you have to be able to unlock these things that everybody else is doing, but you have to be able to do it at a price that an individual artist entrepreneur doing it out of their home can afford. And that's
I love that. And so just a few more questions here and we can kind of wrap up because I know you got to run here pretty soon, but me knowing art storefronts for some time, you kind of mentioned this before, right? Prior to this wave, a big piece of it was just marketing education, teaching you how to be a marketer. Now you have the sort of Copilot era where you're outsourcing a lot of your marketing. You've introduced this a little bit at Art Storefronts already through, I guess, like a beta launch. How's it received by those customers so far?
It's been unbelievable. It's been unbelievable. Internally, one of the things that we care a lot about, because we're very concerned with like customer success and customer experience. Mm-hmm. And so we want to see positive feedback in the form of reviews and, things like that, unsolicited, like just how are people feeling about it? Are they happy with the service? Are they getting results? And we're getting more testimonials and unsolicited reviews than we've ever gotten. I think the content of them is fascinating. We posted some of them on our website. You can obviously like Google us and read a bunch of them. But people talking about how I can't believe it. Like I was on vacation, or I was taking care of a sick family member and all of this art promotion is happening for me on my social media and my emails, and I'm not missing anything, and I'm not missing any of the big art selling holidays, and I'm getting orders, and they're coming in. And so that's incredible. And then from a data standpoint, us being the platform, and we can see the sales, coming through, we're seeing more sales than ever before. And the customers that are on Copilot are seeing dramatically higher sales. I mean, like 100% higher sales or more,
So you're looking at Copilot versus non-Copilot customers?
Correct. Exactly.
Wow.
So because we want to see the people who are, following the art marketing calendar on their own, how are they doing compared to people that are on Copilot, right? And what we found is that it's just hard for artists to do all of the marketing work. They don't do it. It's just a lot of it's a lot of work. And Copilot already does more than that, right? Because as a marketing department, we can do more. We can send more emails, we can do more posts, whereas an individual artist, they just can't. Like if we're in the middle, Brandon, of a Mother's Day sale or a Valentine's Day sale, this is a 2 or 3 week campaign that you need to run, right? There's a lead up to it, and you got to lead people in with your social media posts and your emails. There's a lot of work that gets done. It's like, I think 7 emails have to get sent or so. And it's around like 20 social media posts, and when we're in one of those sales, or big art selling times, we can juice the amount of marketing that we can send more emails, and we can do more social media posts if we're seeing results from it. And we do that. Whereas, if you're not looking at the stuff and the data, and you don't know whether this thing is working or not, or you're just busy, most artists are not able to do that, or they're just not getting it done. So the results are there overall, and that is the big thing. That's the biggest thing for us, right? Is that we're executing a proven marketing strategy, and the results are there in the sales. And that's exactly what has to happen.
Wow. It sounds like an amazing service and amazing product so far.
This is a key point, Brandon. It has to be better than anything an artist can do on their own, even if they're following our marketing strategy, which is the best marketing strategy that's ever been created for artists comprehensively, right? I think that's objective. If you ask, we have 10,000 artists that are on it. You can ask people that are on it and people that are not on it, right? But the important point is, it doesn't matter if an artist is, doing marketing on their own outside of Art Storefronts, or following our marketing calendar, or has hired an agency to do marketing for them, or something else. Art Marketing Copilot will beat all of it, because if it's actually common sense. It's not just, this is not like a hyperbolic statement, right? It's common sense. If you look at any of the artists that are on Copilot, and you look at their social media, and you're on their email list, and you compare it to multi-million-dollar artists that I've already mentioned, you can do this, right? You look at their social media feed and the posts and what's happening there, and you look at their emails and so forth, you will see that they are marketing at a multi-million-dollar business level, objectively, right? And then you can compare that to other artists, any artist that's out there, and you will see very clearly that they are not. And if you're wondering why your business might not be selling as much, it comes down to promotion and a volume of marketing. That's the differentiator,
Well, I mean, with a bold statement like that, I don't know how any artist wouldn't be curious about it. Sounds like a lot of thought and time and money's gone into the service. And so, man, this has been a great conversation. I've loved the history lesson and kind of learning about all these big pivots. It sounds like Copilot's going to be just this huge wave in terms of the model of outsourcing a lot of your marketing. Where can people, if they're interested in Art Storefronts, or they're interested in Art Marketing Copilot, where can they find out more about it?
They just come to our website at artstorefronts.com. There's a big orange button that says request a demo in the upper right-hand corner. Just fill that out, and then somebody on our outreach team will reach out to you pretty quickly. And, you can tell them about your art and your business, give a little background, help us understand you a bit, because we want to make sure that we can make you successful if you want to work with us. And they'll give you any information, pricing, any of that stuff that you want to know, all the details, and then they can show you a demo of everything as well. like all the features of the website and e-commerce that I mentioned, as well as anything related to Copilot.
Awesome. Awesome. Sounds amazing. Well, thanks everybody. That's our episode for today. Appreciate Nick coming on. Great talk, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.